Hey everyone, it's Isaiah again. Isaiah Gabriel from isaiahbell.com. Sorry, let me do the whole thing. This is another one of my episodes of my podcast episodes. So the Isaiah's Inspiring Evenings podcast. And this is another one of the Things Women Don't Talk About series, where we are talking about things that we don't talk about, whether they are too mundane and not serious enough to be talked about, or whether they are too serious or maybe too dark or too taboo to talk about. And today is episode 2 of a small series that we are doing together with the amazing Cindi Buenzli Gertz, or do you say Buenzli? I never managed that. I'm sorry.
But that's
Buenzli
okay.
Gertz.
You
Yes,
inside.
we are doing a short series of 4 episodes around menopause. It is called Inspired Menopause, and this is episode 3. So today we'll be talking about the mental aspect of menopause, or the mental challenges that happen during the menopause. And before we go too deep in there, I would like to introduce Cindi to you. And the way I do this is the simple way. I'm going to read her bio because she's done so many things that it's really difficult for me to remember everything. So here we go. As a wife, mom, teacher, and busy woman who survived 10 plus years of perimenopause, Cindi is on a mission to bring the change out of the shadows and into the light. In her women's circles, Cindi helps her midlife sisters find rest, release, and relief during perimenopause so they can fully enjoy their wise womanhood. She teaches women how to reclaim their physical and emotional well-being with restorative yoga and simple self-care habits. And she shows midlife women pregnant with the possibility of who they are becoming how to rebirth themselves into a vibrant second half of life. A woman's joyful journey through midlife can start in her powerful, transformative women's circles called Not Your Mother's Menopause, or in her signature Inspired Menopause program. Cindi is also a certified Kripalu yoga teacher of 25 years and co-author of 2 books, Awakening the Divine Feminine and Love Notes from the Soul. You will also find any and all of the links to get in contact with Cindi above or below this podcast, wherever you're listening to it. So, and we'll talk at the end a little bit about a few ideas of how you could get in touch with Cindi if you want to get closer to her. But for now, menopause, inspired menopause, the mind issue. So, hey again, sorry, I'm not even sure I gave you the time to say hello. So, hello, Cindi.
Hello, it's good to be back. Thank you for having me, Isaiah.
My pleasure. And so today we will be discussing the difficult, sometimes very challenging thing that happens to many women during menopause, which is the am I going crazy phase? Is my brain completely giving up on me? Am I stupid suddenly? What the hell is happening to my head? Because if the physical challenges or changes that we do not call symptoms, remember, and if you do not know what I'm talking about, go and listen to episode 1. But if these physical changes are discussed even remotely, but they are mostly by medical professionals who try to suppress them. But anyway, the mental ones are just ignored altogether. Would you agree with that? That they don't even appear.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a woman's brain chemistry is actually changing as she goes through perimenopause. And I would also say that our brains are holding a lot at that point of life too. So you're not going crazy and it's not all in your head. You just have a lot. So I like to call it the sandwich years, where you're between raising kids, or maybe you're just having a newly empty nest, or the other, your partner might be going into retirement. That's a lot to think about. And then on the other end of things, and I'm seeing this in my own women's circle, you're starting to care for aging parents.
Yeah.
And that's not including your career if you have one, or your perimenopause journey that you're going through. So, that's a lot to hold all at one time. And there's some research out there, that we can hold at the most 5 to 7 things in our brain. And that's at the top end. I told my husband the other day, I'm like, only give me a list of 3 things. That's all I can hold right now. All I want to hold right now.
Oh gosh, yeah. 5 things, is that what you said? We can't, as human beings, we can't hold more than 5. Yeah,
Yeah,
no wonder women in perimenopause get crazy
I
or feel they're
know.
getting crazy, because they're holding way more than 5. So they don't
Yeah,
basically,
yeah, as
we don't
any woman. Yeah.
we don't hold it, basically. We start juggling, and that's where the shit begins.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I always like to say, I'm going to dive in deep right away today. So here's this theory that I have. And I test it out when I'm in programs and I'm giving a talk and I'm in a room full of people. I will often test this theory out and I see heads going like this. So I think women have, and maybe it's innate, maybe it's learned. It might be a combination of both. But I think women have this uncanny ability to hold the big picture for their families. So family might be you and your partner, it might be you and your kids, it might be you and more of your extended family. Some people, they consider friends part of their inner family circle. That's not always biological for all of us. So women they tend to hold the big picture for what's going on.
Mm.
Here's another thing that I see women do all the time. And I don't necessarily see the men in my life doing this. Maybe I'm an anomaly, but I don't think so. They are constantly anticipating other people's needs.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to go with a bobbing head here, if you don't see me, if you're just listening, but I'm bobbing my head a
Yeah.
lot. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's no wonder why we're on overload. And then we haven't even talked yet about the vast amount of information that's out there that we are taking in every day, through the media, through social channels. Uh, it's a lot. It's a lot to hold in
Yeah,
your
I
brain.
mean, I don't know about the US, because I'm in Europe. So in Europe, there is a big conversation going around now around the mental load of anything family concerned, and that it rests mostly on women, whatever their age. So taking care of, remembering that there must be a dentist appointment every year for every kid, remembering to cut the nails of all the people. I remember a time when my kids were small, and I said, I'm in charge of 60 nails, and I have to remember to actually
Right?
do it, right? Because it's not going to
I
happen.
know.
And I'm
Well, I'm going to
guessing,
admit something here. I have to admit something here. I don't remember teaching my daughter how to clip her nails. Somehow she figured it out. I don't know, maybe her dad ended up doing it, but like I sat down one day and I'm like, I don't actually remember ever doing it.
Mm.
And I'm like, and I had that momentary like, oh my gosh, does that make me a bad mom?
No, but I think, if you add all that, plus going through menopause, and the parents and the career, and it's like, oh my goddess, of course we are in overload of mental lists and preoccupations. And I'm a queen of lists, I've always been, but I feel like in the last 10 years I've had so many lists, and they seem to never end. Before, I remember a
Yeah.
time when lists ended. It was like, okay, this is done, I can now rest. But now, no, there is no ending to the list, because I feel
Yeah.
that my brain cannot contain all of that. So I need to write it down. So at least
Yeah.
it's not in my head anymore. But then it creates the same overload. Now I hide the lists because if I don't see them, I give myself permission to rest. But if I see the list, it overloads me in a way that, oh my God, I haven't finished this or that. So it's really
Yeah.
my experience is that the mental load of this period of life is enormous and completely
It is.
ignored.
Yeah, it is enormous. And kind of to go back to episode 1, we talked about rest a lot. So women aren't just exhausted physically, or exhausted mentally and emotionally too.
They're both. Yeah, the three of them. And then they
Yeah,
can't sleep because they have the hot flashes and then the night sweats and
right,
everything. So we're talking
right.
over tiredness and no possibility to really, well, to seriously rest. So obviously that adds up because let's go back to episode 1. Menopause is something, a phenomenon, let's call it this way, that can last a long time. It can be 2 years, it can be 4 years, it can be more. So the tiredness, the exhaustion, I'm guessing, is piling up.
Yeah, and when that adds up, sleep deprivation is a real thing. And, I remember talking to a friend once who was about 10 years ahead of me in her journey, and her sleep deprivation was so bad, she seriously considered ending it all.
Oh
And,
my God.
that's a real thing for women to be that tired.
Mm.
Well, none of us should be that tired. And if we are, we should be able to rest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, you mentioned something that I want to go back to because I want to investigate. I didn't know that. You said our brain chemistry is changing. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm definitely not a medical
No,
expert, but
obviously not.
yeah, yeah. So if we go back to episode 1, I talked about a little bit about the how the adrenals are taking over the production of some of our
Mm-hmm,
hormones
mm-hmm,
that the
mm-hmm,
ovaries produced. So there's a couple of glands in the brain that get involved too. I think the primary player is the pituitary. And so, there's kind of this dance going on,
mm-hmm,
right? And these glands in the brain, one of them, I can't remember if it's the pineal or the pituitary, but one of them regulates over 100 systems in our body.
mm-hmm.
So again,
Wow.
if we think about our endocrine system as kind of this kind of lock and key mechanism, again, if just one thing changes,
Mm-hmm.
it can affect everything else. So yeah, there's
Yeah.
changes going on in the brain. It's not just in your body.
Yeah.
So,
But
and
it's still
and we
not
can
just
also,
in your head either. It's not like you're making it
right,
up.
right. No, we're not making it up. You're not making it up. And you also, like I've been talking all along about this, kind of like how women have this golden opportunity to reflect back on their lives and look at their successes, their failures, their lessons learned, the insights they've gained over a 50-year span of time, and then to actually imagine and create what you want for yourself going forward. So
Like a
our
portal.
intellect, right, a portal. And so we have this golden opportunity. So meditation is also to change our brains, right? And so we have this portal that we can use to access our imagination and to
Mhm,
dream. And so we kind of touched on resting in the first episode, and you mentioned that as a place for dreaming.
mhm,
And I would love to come back to that and talk
absolutely.
about and talk about how important getting rest is. And not just like sleep is one thing, right? But
Yeah.
rest, like purposeful rest where we can daydream, right? And we
Yeah.
can tune into our dreams and sleep too. Although I noticed, speaking of the mind and how it works, that when I was in the throes of perimenopause, I, I, I tried dreaming, but I didn't remember my dreams for a long
Hmm.
time. And I think my mind was just like, I look at my dreams, like my night dreams, as a way to process through what's going on in my daily life. I look at it as a connection to my intuition, right? And I think my brain was just on overload that
Mm.
I couldn't even remember my dreams.
Yeah, no, I'm experiencing a very similar thing. It's very, very
Oh,
rare these days that I remember my dreams. It's like they have vanished. And I do feel that
yeah.
it's because there's so much that basically, I need to shut, or somebody in there in my brain needs to shut the thing completely for me to be able to rest and not even remember anything. And that I used to remember my dreams a lot, and now it's completely gone for now. For now. Um,
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that that happened to somebody else. I always wondered about that, and I have good news. It should come back because now that I'm
Good.
post menopause and a lot of the changes that were happening in my
Mm,
body have all really settled down, except for the hot flashes. I am accessing my dreams again, my
that's cool.
night dreams, and they're very powerful and they're very vivid. In fact, I want to get into a dream circle. That's the next thing I want to explore. So I have good news. It will come back. It should come back, at least in my
Well, we'll
experience.
see.
It has come.
Yeah, what I find interesting is that um, two things I wanted to point out. The first thing is that I heard you say, I don't remember when, that we're talking here about the second half of the life. And because we are in our, in 2024, we have a wider life expectancy than we used to have 50 years ago. And so it means that it's really not, menopause is not the end of life, despite what society sometimes tries to insist on pushing upon us that, you're menopaused, you're useless, go home, basically, and knit some sweaters for your grandchildren, and that's about it. Tough luck. Vibrant menopaused women are going to take over the world
Right.
because there's going to be a lot of us. And I personally have no intention of dying anytime soon. So that means that it's really, what I mean to say by that is it's really worth investigating and learning and walking this menopause thing, because there's another side to it, and the other side is going to be hopefully many happy years. Um, so yeah, it's worth it. It's not like, okay, let's give up.
I love that you brought that up because, yeah, barring any unforeseen,
Yeah,
accidents or
of
things
course.
like that, if we can live into our 90s. So there's people living into their hundreds these days.
Yeah.
So here is an opportunity where we can use our brain power to reframe what menopause
Hmm.
is. And it starts now. Like, you're setting the stage for the rest of your life
Hmm.
now. So what do you want that to look like? You want to be healthy and vibrant and to be able to move physically through the world with ease and to have an open heart and a sharp mind, right? And
And
to be
projects.
spiritually connected, all of it, right? So this is a great time for us to allow ourselves to even kind of dig up those old stories, those old beliefs that we have, and to challenge them and to
Yeah.
reframe.
And to rewrite a new story. And
Yep.
for me, there's a lot around projects, kind of making up time to dream the next projects, the next things that attract me, that I'm, in French we say envie, And envie means envy, but not in a bad term, things that attract me, that I want to experience.
Oh,
But also envie means in life. So it
I
has
love that.
the two meanings. And for me, really, I've felt in the last few years or months that there's a lot of new ideas that I've started writing down things that I wanted to do in my life, or to experience, or to be places I want to be that I didn't have before. It was so
Yeah.
it's really like there's a new me being birthed. The image that I read in your bio earlier on really resonates a lot with me as being in this change period. And I think it's an amazing opportunity to change the story of your life. I have a very dear friend who I was discussing the other day, and saying, "What are your net?" I just, casually asked her, "What are your projects?" And she said, "Oh, I don't have any projects. In my life, I wanted to create a family. I have, and now I'm over." And I was like, "Sorry, what? You're 56 years old. You're
Wow.
over? You think you literally?" And I was shocked. Yes, my heart goes to her.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's
oh my God, there's I loved being a mom. I have two sons. I love them to bits. It's been an amazing experience. Um, and I feel very blessed that I was able to experience motherhood. And I'm really happy it's done also. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
the
We
or at
both.
least this
Both.
part of the motherhood, the baby part and the teenage part. And now they're grown ups. And I will always be their mom, but I'm not the primary caregiver anymore of their lives. I can do something else with my life. And I felt so sorry for that friend of mine. It was like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
You need to create new dreams for yourself.
Yeah, that is very shocking and very heartbreaking. And your story has given me two ideas that I want to talk about. May I?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, well, the first is when we talk about the way we think about things, like, you know, you loved being a mom and you're ready for,
Oh, yeah.
new creative adventures. So, we always think like everything has to be either or.
Hmm.
I think one of the most powerful things and one of the most powerful words we can use when we're in midlife and going through perimenopause is and.
Hmm.
We can feel anxiety about the process and also be excited and maybe relieved that it's going to be over someday. We can be happy and sad at the same time. And we can have more than one belief at the same time. So that's the one thing that I wanted to say. It can be both of those things. And then the other thing, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about rest and restorative yoga is because it creates that space for what you're talking
Hmm.
about, to be able
Yeah.
to dream and reframe and reimagine. And what I love about some of the restorative yoga that we do is that you actually embody the energy of what how you want to be, how you want to
Hmm.
show
Hmm.
up. So, for instance, you can twist or you can turn yourself upside down. And I
Hmm.
remember at the very beginning of my perimenopause journey, and I was really going through a rough time, mentally and spiritually, emotionally, and the physical things were kind of mild back then, but this other stuff was going on. And I remember her saying to a class of us that the most powerful thing we can do in midlife and during our perimenopause experience is shift our perspective. And so we have tools for that in restorative yoga. We can actually literally turn ourselves upside down
Hmm.
or lay down or twist. And then you begin to actually embody that energy and, bring yourself, give yourself that spaciousness for
Mhm,
dreaming.
mhm.
And then the mind also rests too, right? We can surrender. That's one of the practices, is the ultimate practice is, you know, they talk about shavasana or relaxation as a mini death, a mini
Mhm,
letting
mhm.
go.
But for
Yeah.
me, it's really important. Again, I love this story of shifting perspective, as in literally changing the position of your body so that you have a different perspective. I love that. And I did that with you, and I was very lucky to experience that. And it does change a lot. Um, but the other thing that you mentioned at the end, which is around um Shivasana and the little death thing, for me,
Yeah.
there's a very important thing when you said rest is not sleep. Sometimes we need, not sometimes, I would say all the time, we need rest from the situation.
Mm,
But we need to be doing, sorry, or being something that gives us rest from a particular situation. So we were mentioning the overwhelm of many women aged around the menopause. And I think rest from the situation. So whether it is you go and walk on in nature, or you sit down and meditate, or you do restorative yoga, or you take a cruise, or you read a book, all this is my brain getting a rest from the to-do lists and the situations and the demands of everyone around me that I think I have to help and provide for and find solutions to everything. And so this rest
right.
from the situation for me is a very powerful way to consider what rest means. I know for me, one of the things that I rest with is painting. And it's very tiring. I
Mm-hmm.
get out of that exhausted, but it's still rest.
Yeah, it's rest from the other things.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. And rest can come in so many different forms. And all of those examples you gave are also ways that we can shift our perspective.
Absolutely.
Getting out in nature and walking, that will give you a shift of perspective. Going on a trip, a cruise, an adventure, that'll give you a shift in perspective. And as you said, also a rest from other things in your life.
Mm.
And I think the only thing to be careful of is, are you doing that mindfully? Are you doing that
Yeah. Hmm.
purposefully? Or is that just a distraction or
Hmm.
spiritual bypassing your life, right?
Hmm. No, I agree. Of course, it's not about shutting down the issues with whatever distraction you find. But I think that sometimes, for me, I found that it's not that easy to just go and sleep, because then my mind goes overdrive. I just lie down in my bed, start sweating, by the way, although I don't have that many hot flashes, but I start sweating and my mind goes in overdrive, and I make mental lists of everything that I should be doing or that I will do tomorrow morning. And then it's the middle of the night and I'm not sleeping. Whereas
Yeah.
when I grab, for me, a brush, or when I put my walking boots and I just go out, I my mind shuts down, and it's such a for a while, I can just smell the air outside, look at the fallen leaves, and just be with what is, without trying to do something about it. And that for me
Yeah.
has been precious way to rest. Um, and
Yeah.
still,
I'm
um,
just resting right now in the imagery of that. I'm like picturing it, a mat. I'm just imagining it. Yeah.
but
It's
I'm lucky enough to
lovely.
live in the middle of nowhere, which means I can literally get out the door and
Yeah.
I'm in nature, which is a luxury you can't imagine. Um, and
So
and that
there's something
brings
that
me to the other thing
oh,
that I want to bring back is the cyclic thing. Because again, rest is not the same in the summer than it can be in the winter. And since menopause is not a season, it's a few years, maybe we should also give ourselves permission to experience rest in different ways.
yeah, I totally agree with that. And if I, reflect on my own experience, I definitely do rest differently in the winter than I do in the spring, in the summer. Each each one of the seasons brings a different type of rest, a different level of activity. Yeah, yeah, I like what you're saying, that
Yeah, no, for me
rest
it's
is
very, yeah, but everything is cyclical. That's my conclusion on life is, as a woman, everything is cyclical, whatever the age or the period. And when, at least for me, I found that when I can embrace the cyclical nature, everything gets easier.
yes.
Not that,
Yeah,
not there aren't any challenges, but everything gets easier if I go with the whole cycle thing, or instead of going against it.
right. Like that makes me think of that saying, going with the flow.
Hmm.
And what I was observing is that, we definitely have this physical need for sleep, but it's not the lack of sleep isn't caused by perimenopause.
Hmm.
It is the practice or the ability or whatever to kind of, it's the mind, the racing mind
Yeah.
that is keeping us from sleeping. So how do we help our mind to rest more, or to be more present with what's in our mind without getting caught up in it, so that we can sleep? Because there's all different kinds of ways that manifests: insomnia, or waking in the night, thinking of your own,
Hmm.
mortality, or your to-do list or whatever. And it's not that the foggy brain and the lack of concentration is like directly a change of perimenopause, but it's that the things that keep us from sleeping then are what are contributing to
Yeah.
brain fog and the bobble-headedness and that feeling of, oh my gosh, am I going crazy? Do I have dementia? Is this early onset?
No, it's not. It's called menopause. Welcome.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think it's definitely, it feels like it's about being a little more gracious with ourselves. Kind of, okay, well, I
Yeah.
can't be this 25-year-old anymore. Voila, just deal with it, and sleep more and rest more, and, you know, consider or enter life differently. And that maybe that's because the brain ages in different way than the body does. So I remember somebody very old, who has now passed away, but she was saying to me, in my head, I'm still 25, and she was 95 when she said that. And she literally was seeing herself as a 25-year-old, and she was pissed and annoyed at this body that was not her body of a 25-year-old. And she
Right.
hated it. And I think that there
Yeah.
is, I'm guessing in menopause, there's a lot of
I
women
think
who
that,
also have anger with their own bodies, because the mind is
yeah.
supposedly,
And
not changing that fast.
yeah. Yeah, that is something that we'll definitely be able to unpack when we have that we'll have unpacked in the episode on
Yeah,
emotions,
sure, of
right? Is
course.
that yeah, and to revisit that now, that makes so much sense to me. Like the in the mind, we're much younger than we are in our
Yeah.
actual physical body, and how frustrating that can be.
Yeah, because the responsibilities pile up, as we were saying. The body's failing, or, we consider that failing. And the mind is kind of racing up there saying, come on, move your ass, basically. Which is, if I'm hearing you correctly, the exact opposite of what we're wanting. which is rest, breathe,
Yeah.
and, be with it, basically. Um,
Right. And I think this is why so many women, and I've heard women actually say this, that they feel betrayed by their body.
mhm, mhm,
And I'm encouraging us through rest to befriend our bodies. And again, to go back to that idea of, accepting the changes that are receiving
mhm.
the changes that are happening to us. And part of that is also reframing.
Yeah. And I'm guessing it's also a good time to address any limiting beliefs we have about life in general and about our bodies. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. I feel like there is a time when I almost wanted to, yeah, it was simpler to accept that, okay, I'm done with sex, for instance. I'm done with, okay, I'm menopause, so I'm done with all of this. Or I'm done with,
Mhm.
being an active person, and now I'll just start knitting, basically, by the fire. And there, it took me a while to realize, listen, nobody's dying here. I'm not dying, so I'm not stopping. So it was definitely limiting, and it was definitely a belief or a story. And I'm not sure I'm still, because society puts such a huge pressure on us. It takes some courage and some encouragement to the mind to reframe those, doesn't it?
I think it does. I think it takes courage and encouragement and support, and that can come from a sisterhood of, reflecting on these beliefs and stories with other women, because we get stories from all different kinds of places, and one of the things that I think I started to do when I was in perimenopause was to challenge some of those
Mm-hmm.
stories that I was telling myself. And well, where did this come from? This is not how I grew up. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, I had different stories from my growing up years. But stories are just stories, and stories can be rewritten.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that I've heard myself and some of my friends who are experiencing this time, one of the stories that I find is recurring is, by now I should have fill in the blank. And it's like, if I'm menopaused, I should have whatever, a happy relationship, a successful business, you name it. Um, and it's like, why? Who said that something had to be, it's not a deadline, it's a portal. It's a portal, as we said. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. There's a book out there called The Gap in the Game, and I talk about that a lot with the women I work with, because, so much we are measuring our progress against the future. And that's on the horizon. So it's
mhm,
it's always out of our reach. And I think one of the things that I work on with the women that are in my circle, because I hear a lot of them say the
mm,
same thing, is how to look back and measure our progress. So we
mhm,
always start with celebrations and progress that we've made. And it's such a game changer when you look at it that way and you see how much you have
mhm,
actually accomplished in your
mhm,
life. Think about it. You've raised kids, you've had a career, you've been involved in your community, you've managed a household, you're there for your family, your extended family. Think of all the millions of things you've planned
mhm.
and executed.
Of
It's like,
course.
yeah, we're already more than enough. We've already
Mhm.
done more than enough.
But I think it's really very common to use this menopause portal as a yeah, as a deadline, kind of, looking back at my life and then judging myself. And it's,
Yeah.
again, it's adding to the mental load, as if we don't have enough, then we add the self-judgment upon that. Um, and then obviously we
Right.
don't sleep.
Right. So what if we looked at that instead of an and as a beginning?
Mm, yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. It has to be a new beginning because it's, physically,
Yeah.
and we talked about about that in episode 1, but the change means literally the body is changing and the hormone system is changing, and that means the electricity and the energy in the body is changing, and that means that we are a new person. And it takes a
Yeah.
few months/years to birth that new person. Um, and I really feel like I need to reiterate some compassion for oneself around this, and for one's brain mostly, who is women's
Yeah.
brain are spending so much time being harsh to themselves. And it's like, please give yourself some,
Yeah, we're very good at beating ourselves up,
that's why
and
we need the
it's
sisters, right?
right. It's like we have to relearn how to mother ourselves,
Mm,
right? And part of going back to the whole idea of cycles, I mean, that's
mm,
why I like women to think of me as their midlife midwife is every month when we're cycling with our period, right? We come into our fullness and then things die away and the cycle goes on. So there's this cycle of birth and life and death and rebirth. And on
mhm.
a bigger scale, I mean, that's what menopause is.
Yeah.
It's the death of our cycle, but it's the birth and the rebirth of something new. And
Hmm.
we get to create that.
Yeah,
We get to decide what it's going to
absolutely.
be.
And
And
I
we
think
can
that
use,
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, we can use the power of our mind
Hmm.
to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when our mind is playing tricks, what could be a good idea is to share with other women, because other women will reflect the good parts. And if you choose the right circles to dwell, I'm pretty sure that you will find support and compassion that sometimes I deny myself, but I will give it to a sister and she will give it to me. Um,
I know we're so good at that. Women are known in a crisis, and menopause is a sort of a crisis, right? If you look at it in a positive way, it's an awakening type of
mhm.
crisis. And we tend to befriend. We befriend and tend. That's what we do.
So if you want to join Cindi in one of her circles, and see how the amazing space that she holds and the amazing amount of resources that she has to help you out, please use the links above or below the video. And Cindi, I don't want to overstep there, but you work one-to-one with people, you organize retreats, you have group programs. There's so many ways that people can work with you. And I think you even mentioned that you might have a gift for the listeners, so I'm pushing it. Do you I think we discussed something around a
Yes,
sleep.
I love that. We did. I have a PDF called the Sleep Well Solution. It's my 5-step plan to sweet sound slumber every night. I also do it as a webinar once a year, but somebody can they can grab the PDF until the webinar comes around. And then of course I do work one-on-one. I'm planning my first in-person 3-day retreat for the fall this year. And the best way for me to figure out what's going to be a fit for you is to email me. We can set up a discovery conversation. There's no obligation at all. It's my service to another woman to help her get clear on what her vision is for her perimenopause journey, her best health, and what are the
Using
challenges and
using your mind
obstacles?
to help hers.
Yes, getting in the way of that, and how I can help one-on-one, or can one of my circles or retreats or other services help, and we can talk about that.
Well, you will find all the links below or above the video or the audio, whether you're listening or watching us, and including the link to the sleep solution PDF that you can grab ASAP and start working on getting a better night's sleep, which I'm pretty sure, whether in menopause or not, will help you out. Because I think the world that we live in, we all are lacking sleep and sleep, sound sleep mostly.
Yeah. I think so too, absolutely. And I've struggled with sleep a good part of my life, and I think the culture we live in certainly doesn't support it. And yeah,
Again,
so
the mind is
I'm
playing
happy,
tricks and judging, right?
yeah, happy to help in that way with what
Well,
I've
thank
learned.
you very, very much. So this was episode 3. So we have another episode that we talk about the spiritual aspects of menopause. So you can join us in a month or so. I still don't know the dates, but they will be in the description of the podcast episode. So the next date. And by the way, the retreat that Cindi was mentioning, this is 2024. If you're listening to this in a few years in the future, just so you know, but she might organize new ones in the future. Who knows? So
Right.
if you want
I
to know
hope
more
it
about
every
all of
year.
that, reach out for Cindi. And thank you very much for listening to us. Thank you very much, Cindi. I am really happy we're doing this series together. This is one of the things that I will proudly parade on my podcast for years to come. Conversations about these topics in a way that I feel is so supportive and so with so much compassion with women and what they go through. So thank you very much for that. This has
Oh,
been
thank you. Thank you
amazing.
for having me. And it's amazing and fun and interesting. And thank you so much.
Well, we'll talk soon. Bye for now.